I want to share what happened after we moved to Florida and decided to buy a house. I didn't expect it to be this complicated, and I'll tell you all about it.
And if you are trying to buy a house, you are not just competing against other local buyers.
Yeah, corporate investors are gobbling up a shocking number of houses in Central Florida just as soon as they go on the market, too. News 6 is...
As you might have seen in my previous video, a lot of unexpected things happened when we first moved to Florida. If you missed it, you can watch it to catch up. When I started looking into buying a house not too far from where I live, I was excited to settle down in this beautiful state. I began gathering information about buying a house, talking to different real estate agents, and doing research online.
More than 9,600 homes across the city are owned by these large institutional investors.
I found plenty of useful information along the way, and I'll share this journey with you. Of course, I was looking for a nice house in a safe suburb where I could enjoy biking with my kids and walking my dog, Chico, who is a beautiful Chihuahua. Safety, especially for women like me, is very important. Don't forget to subscribe. One of the first things I found out was that REITN released a report on Valentine's Day, revealing that investors purchased 26% of the country's most affordable homes in the fourth quarter. This is the highest percentage ever recorded. To give you an idea, that's a little over 1 out of every 4 homes listed for sale.
Institutional investors are being blamed for contributing to rising rents.
These homes were bought by big institutional buyers who paid with all cash and didn't need any financing. They weren't worried about the Federal Reserve or the recent increase in mortgage interest rates, which has already slowed down the housing market significantly. Let me explain what happens when you're saving money to buy a house. Do you think it's fair? Also, the average interest rate for 30-year fixed-rate mortgages has risen to over 7%. Because of this, fewer people are applying to refinance their mortgages, with a drop of 11% last week. Additionally, fewer people are applying for new mortgages to buy homes, with a decrease of 10%. Before buying a house, it's important to carefully consider factors like the weight of the mortgage and the interest rates. It's not an easy decision to make. Plus, this problem is worsened by inflation and the fact that wages are not increasing at the same rate. Bank of America's CEO Brian Moynihan explained that consumers are facing 2 conflicting trends. Rising prices are making it harder to afford things, while low unemployment and higher wages are driving economic growth. He warned that we may have to get used to mortgage rates of 6 or 7%, or even higher, similar to what happened in the 1980s when interest rates on home loans were as high as 18%. Let's simplify this. Take a look at this chart that shows how investors are buying more homes. The orange part shows they're particularly interested in cheap homes. So when you hear about big investors, like sharks, talking about loser states and cities and moving their money to Florida, it's something significant. From what I've seen, there's a ton of pressure in the market. The only chance you get a good deal is when there's a crisis and the seller is super desperate. But even then, regular folks like us struggle to compete with big investors. This is making it really hard for buyers, and more people are opting to rent instead. I've also noticed that Florida is becoming a hot spot for investors. Have you seen it too? Cities like Miami, Jacksonville, and Fort Lauderdale are bustling with activity. With more investors buying homes, the rental market is getting competitive and prices are rising. This makes it even harder for me to buy a house. Have you faced the same challenge? On top of that, renting in Florida is already pricey, and it's not getting any cheaper. The demand is high, especially in cities like Miami. Florida's population is growing rapidly, making it one of the fastest growing states in the country. Phew. So, if you're thinking about buying or selling a home, it's essential to understand what's happening in the market. The housing market is changing, and it's important to be prepared for what's coming next. You probably heard that Florida became super popular during the pandemic because folks could work from anywhere, and they chose warmer spots like Florida. Plus, Florida doesn't have a state income tax, and it boasts 825 miles of beaches. How cool is that? My kids especially adore going to the beach. But now, things are changing, and it's not going to be good for everyone. The housing market is crashing, which means it's getting harder for people to buy homes. Miami is one of the most expensive places to live, with a median rent of almost $3,300 a month. Tampa is a bit more affordable, but prices are likely to go up soon as more people move here to escape problems in other parts of the country. People like me who want to buy homes might find it tough because big companies with loads of money are snapping up properties, making it harder for regular buyers to get in on the action. This is going to make things even worse for people who are struggling financially. There are signs that things might get worse, like a lot of people getting laid off from their jobs and record-high credit card debt. This is a warning sign that the economy is not doing well, and we might be heading towards some tough times. Let's talk about investors who won't lower the rent. Progress Residential recently made a big move by buying a whole block of houses near Phoenix from a home builder called Meritage Homes. These houses have 3 bedrooms and are now up for rent at prices ranging from $2,100 to $2,400 per month. Progress Residential is a big deal in real estate, known as a private fund on Wall Street. They're all about buying houses and renting them out to tenants. Unfortunately, this means regular folks in the neighborhood couldn't buy these homes because the investor snagged them all up. For potential renters, it's tough because Progress Residential won't budge on the rent. They'd rather leave the houses empty than lower the rent if they can't find tenants at the rates they want. It's interesting to note that investor activity in the housing market has dropped a lot since the peak during the pandemic, especially in places like Phoenix and Las Vegas. But even with the drop, companies like Progress Residential are still making big purchases, showing that investors are still interested in real estate. Even in Florida, we're dealing with this issue. You can see lots of empty houses waiting to be rented. It's a tough situation. Another thing I've been going through. Middle class gets only rentals in Florida's housing market. The middle class is finding itself increasingly limited to renting rather than owning homes. With soaring property prices and fierce competition from investors, many middle-class families are struggling to afford homeownership. As real estate prices continue to rise, particularly in cities like Miami, Tampa, and Orlando, owning a home has become a distant dream for many in the middle-income bracket. Investors, including large corporations and private funds, are buying up properties in bulk, driving prices even higher and making it difficult for regular buyers to compete. This trend is pushing more middle-class families towards the rental market, where they face rising rents and limited options. The lack of affordable housing inventory exacerbates the situation, leaving many middle-class individuals and families stuck in rental properties with little hope of buying their own homes. The consequences of this housing imbalance are far-reaching, impacting not only individual families but also the overall stability and prosperity of the middle class in Florida. Without access to homeownership, middle-class households miss out on the wealth-building opportunities and stability that come with owning a home, further widening the gap between the affluent and the middle class. In summary, the middle class in Florida is increasingly relegated to renting due to soaring property prices and stiff competition from investors, highlighting the urgent need for solutions to address the state's affordable housing crisis. What's your take on the situation? Let me know in the comments if you think it's fair for big companies to buy properties like this and control the market. If you'd like to continue exploring this world of finance, consider subscribing and inviting your friends to join the conversation. We're here to provide insights and knowledge. Check out this eye-opening video by clicking on the link if you want to know more.